Good afternoon, and welcome to this year's annual members meeting. Thank you all for taking the time to join us live or to view today's meeting at a later date. This year's annual members meeting is worth 6 continuing education credits, so please watch through to the end and complete the questions to receive your certificate of attendance. Today you'll hear from me on council updates, our CEO, Wendy Dugas, on updates from the operational side of our college, as well as a finance update. From there, our registrar, Tim Ford, will update us on all regulatory and core business activities before we move into the question and answer portion of the AMM. To help facilitate the submission of questions for all of you, we are again using Pigeonhole. If you haven't already signed in, please go to pigeonhole.at and use the password forward. Please feel free to submit your questions and vote for questions throughout the afternoon's presentations. We have staff from the college who will help answer some of your questions in real time, while others will be answered during the question and answer panel at the end. As always, the questions with the most votes will be answered first, and any questions we are not able to get to today will be posted in the Pulse in the coming weeks. Pigeonhole will remain open until Saturday for any questions you may think of after the AMM closes. As you may be aware, this is my last year on council after having served 6 years. Looking back, I haven't had the most conventional time on council. On my first day of council, I was elected the Vice President of Governance, which usually doesn't happen for new council members. I was the VP of Governance for 4 years, and then 2 years ago I took on the role of President. The move from VP to President presented its own challenges. My role transitioned from being the decision maker to facilitating the conversation and bringing us to a place where we can be comfortable with the decisions we are about to make and knowing they are the right decisions for our profession. The best part about my time on council was that I got to have a seat at the table and see firsthand the passion and support my colleagues have about the important issues that are impacting our profession. It is important that council makes decisions we can stand behind, and I'm very proud to have been in that room and have been part of the group making those decisions. This year, council did a thorough evaluation of council elections. We consulted with other regulatory colleges, evaluated past nomination patterns, voting patterns, and election turnout, and asked for feedback from members regarding elections in our January survey. Here's what we found. Over the past several years, the college has seen a steep decline in voter participation and nominations. We heard from members during the survey the election and campaigning process was daunting, and members would be more inclined to join council with recruitment-based appointments. The college receives more applications for committee work than we do for council positions, many with competencies that would benefit our governance structure and support the work of council. The college continues to adapt to new legislation requirements, and this has sparked the discussion of whether the government will soon mandate colleges to transition away from elections as we navigate what a core function of a regulatory college is. I speak from experience when I say that being on council is an eye-opening and important contribution to our profession. You deserve council members that are going to step up and make the tough decisions. You deserve to have people at the table that are there for the right reasons and that are going to put in the work to push the profession forward. I'm happy to announce that after our comprehensive evaluation process, council voted to move to recruitment-based appointments for 2023. Changing to recruitment-based appointments will open up a whole new group of devoted members great for the job and who would not have put their name forward because of the previous campaign and election format. I'm very happy to have been part of this progressive change and to share this news with the membership during my last time presenting at the AMM. As I prepare to pass the torch to our new president-elect in June, I have found I am reflecting back on my terms and ensuring the knowledge of the past remains a reminder of how far we have come. The work of council is a group effort, and there is no single decision that I made myself or can take credit for. We are one voice. Now, that being said, there were many things that got accomplished that I'm very proud of. But most that stand out tend to also be maybe the most controversial. The first is the separation of the registrar and CEO positions. When I first joined council, these roles were the work of one, and it became clear very early on the workload was too overwhelming and too much for one person to handle. As a council, we evaluated the college structure and asked how we can make it more efficient. The clearest answer, restructuring. It was important to council the registrar be a paramedic who understood the work at the front lines and what we see every day. Alternatively, the CEO position was best suited for someone with a strong business management skill set and experience. Although at the time, the change proved to be a polarizing decision, restructuring these roles was one of the best decisions council has made and ultimately has led the college to a better position. Shortly after I was elected, the college was proclaimed under the HPA. I was fortunate to be a part of the transition period and help make decisions with council to meet the requirements as a regulatory college for compliance with the HPA. The road to compliance seemed long and filled with too many tasks. Too many questions, and at times, we wondered if it was achievable. And now, looking at how far we've come, I wonder why we worried. We had the right people doing the right things, and we are at the proverbial healthcare table where we belong. Thank you to every council member, college administrator, and public member who helped to make it happen. Last but not least, the college and council is not about the big accomplishments. It's about what you don't see. So much work happens behind the scenes to drive the profession forward, to ensure the best paramedics are providing the best care to Albertans. Each change made by council and by administration have been made for a better profession, and we're stronger because of it. The college is doing better financially. We know the legislation and know how to work within it. We operate our business strategically, and we speak up at the table. Our profession is on an important road forward that I'm very excited about. But I know it's time to take my leave and let new members contribute their ideas. My term ending is bittersweet. I ran for council, like many members do, with some hot topic concerns. A plan to save the world, single-handedly, of course, and the notion that I could come in and make changes when I knew little about the process. What I learned was humbling. Council is a team, governance is hard, and react with one voice. I'm very proud to have shared this experience with my fellow council members, and I look forward to seeing where the council takes the profession next with President-elect Travis Lanaway at the helm. I'll now ask Wendy Dugas, the CEO of the college, to present her update on the college's activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Last year, we announced that the college was working to transition to a new member portal. This was a large area of concern for our members and was highlighted in the 2021 member survey and echoed again during the 2021-2022 renewal. We are pleased to have launched the new portal called Alinity in March of this year. The new member portal is being implemented with a staggered approach, with more phases set to release in the coming months, including a member website, employer directory, and the continuing competence audit process. We continue to receive positive and constructive feedback on the new portal, and your comments are appreciated as all the minor kinks are worked out during each phase. The upcoming launch of the member website will be a helpful tool for all current and future members. As some of you may be aware, a requirement in the recently introduced Bill 46 was that the college's website must deliver public-focused content. Therefore, a new member website will be created as a dedicated area where you will be able to find all the information needed and relevant to practice. This will include topics like continuing competence activities, conduct information focused on what a member can expect if they find themselves in the complaint process, practice guidelines, resource renewal, and registration information. The member website will be accessible through the portal. And as part of the new portal, all members that begin a renewal will see a 3-step process. First, members will need to complete a profile update to ensure they have the most accurate personal and professional information on the portal. Second, members will need to review their continuing competence record and ensure they have met the requirements for the cycle. Lastly, members will need to complete the professional responsibilities and declarations acknowledgement. One change being implemented this year is that all renewing members will need to ensure their professional liability insurance does not expire on or before October 1st, 2022. Members that have an expiry date listed as on or before October 1st will not be able to proceed with renewal until their insurance policy information is updated. This is because in the past, the college only required members to have active insurance at the time they renew. And every year, there is a group of members that are suspended on October 1st due to expired insurance. This will be a positive change and benefit, as it will prevent this important detail being missed and ensure that no members are suspended at the start of the new registration cycle due to expired insurance. In 2021, Council's main financial objective was to establish reserve fund goals for the college. To do this, Council and administration analyzed a variety of situations that could impact the financial stability of the college and what would happen in those circumstances. We also reviewed the reserve fund balances of some of the other regulatory colleges in Alberta to help establish a reserve balance goal for the college. Council and administration were able to identify a conservative balance where we felt if a circumstance occurred that would jeopardize our financial stability, the college would have enough to remain operational while adjusting to deal with the new financial reality. A surplus was budgeted for the end of 2021, and the college ended the year with an excess of revenue over expenses bigger than anticipated. This was largely attributed to one-time scenarios where costs and operations were discontinued. After factoring out these one-time scenarios, the excess was very close to that of the previous year. The college also continues its trend of fiscal responsibility by reducing costs wherever possible. The biggest area of savings in 2021 was from staffing changes, working remotely, and reductions in IT costs. The biggest area of cost concerns in 2021 were due to increased costs from conduct, which Tim will touch on later. The past 2 years that the college has ended with a surplus, it has been used to reach the reserve fund goal, and we expect to be at or close to meeting that reserve goal by the end of 2023. And once that goal has been met, we will continue to the original goal of operating at a near break-even budget annually. While we were always working to bring down costs and have been successful over the past couple of years, we are feeling the effects of inflation just like everyone else, and will have to evaluate the impact on our operations. The college was able to offer a decrease in fees last year from $525 to $510, and for the upcoming renewal, there are no plans to increase fees. An area that has required and continues to require a lot of the college's staff time is adapting to legislation changes. Last year, we saw the separation of all regulatory colleges away from associations. Fortunately for us, this was a relatively minor change, as the only formal association ties the college previously held was to PAC. While this separation was a requirement we could not avoid, we knew this would create frustration and confusion for members that were utilizing the PAC membership for liability insurance. It was important for us to be able to provide options to you to ease this change, and we were very happy to have secured an insurance alternative that saves members the money of purchasing an association membership while offering enhanced coverage compared to the previous policy. Other legislative changes we will see moving forward include the transition of sections from the regulations into the HPA. And as a result of this, the college will be releasing new policies, bylaws, and standards to align with these changes. There has been a trend with recent legislative changes of moving colleges away from association tasks and into an exclusive regulatory function. While it is our role to regulate the profession and we are bound by our legislative requirements, I also want to make it clear that we want to support members wherever we can. Public interest and member support can be mutually beneficial, and in fact, the two often can go hand in hand. I think we can all agree having registration and renewal requirements ensures public safety, but it also ensures that you are among the best of the best in your field, and not just anyone can do what you do. Having a continuing competence program ensures that paramedics are maintaining public safety by being on top of their game and up to date in their practice. But it also gives you an opportunity to expand your knowledge, grow in your field, and enhance areas of personal interest. We can all agree that conduct and investigations can be very daunting for members. But I think we can also agree that, like all health professions, there is comfort in knowing a process for review and rehabilitation for our members is in place. Accountability while working with the public in such a sensitive and intimate manner is crucial. It's also important to note that the college's goal in conduct reviews is never to strip away your practice permit and take away your ability to work. It is always to educate and rehabilitate wherever possible. We know that these past few years have been extremely taxing, and fatigue is weighing heavily on all of you. And as these legislative changes continue to come down the pipe, we understand that it can feel like the province and the college are working against you. But I encourage you to reach out and ask questions or share your feedback. These changes can feel rapid and may be hard to understand or adjust to. I stand firm in saying that the college, myself included, is committed to supporting members wherever we can, especially when it comes to navigating these changes. And wherever we can, we will ensure that the public's interest is also in the profession's and our members' best interests. With that, I would like to thank everyone for turning in and welcome Tim to present an update on the regulatory side of the college.
Thank you, Wendy. I will start as I usually do and give an update on where we sit with our membership numbers. As of May 1st, there are 3,001 ACPs, 4,078 PCPs, and 1,398 EMRs, putting us at a total of 8,477 practitioners. With 2 more exams to be completed prior to the end of this registration year, I suspect we will finish right around the 8,800 mark. Currently, we have about 220 less registered members this year versus last, and about 190 of those are EMRs. There is a trend starting to develop here, and that is with regard to EMR registration numbers. Back in 2018, we had roughly 3,100 registered EMRs, and that number started to decline. This decline was previously offset by a comparable increase in PCP numbers. However, in the past 2 years, we've watched PCP numbers plateau while the EMR numbers continued to decrease. There are a number of factors that might be playing into this, not the least of which relates to the provisions within the ground ambulance regulations, which prohibit EMRs from working on Class 1, 2, or 3 ambulances. There may be opportunities to address this in the near future, but as of this moment, this is how the regulation reads, and the employers must be compliant. Overall, I believe our registration numbers have definitely been affected by the last 2 years and the increased demand on frontline paramedics. Clearly, the stressors of the job are magnified when the workload increases. Those members who work on the front lines of the public EMS system have dealt with a 30% increase in call volume over the last 2 years, and a decrease in available workforce due to illness and injury. Those members who work in private and industrial settings also have had to pivot, sometimes in turning entire camps into quarantine facilities, and caring for extremely sick patients with limited supplies, equipment, and space. I believe that there are more members now who are looking for alternative career pathways than ever before. And I can tell you, Alberta is not alone in this. My counterparts in other provinces echo the same issues, and the hangover effects of the pandemic has led to a nationwide shortage of paramedics and EMRs. So, what can be done? There's no easy answer, but there are discussions taking place, and there is a focus on our profession, perhaps more now than ever before. Our provincial government has recognized the issues within the public EMS system and called for a provincial committee to be formed to find answers to the issues facing EMS. As I have mentioned in my previous AMM speeches and Pulse updates, the college has worked hard to highlight the important work that our members do, and we are fortunate enough to have a seat at the table for these discussions. We know that any changes made to the public system will also have a trickle-down effect on industry, so we are ensuring that this viewpoint is being highlighted. The final report from this committee will be submitted to the Minister in the next couple of months. I truly hope the solutions presented will result in positive systemic change, and we will start to see more paramedics and EMRs choose to stay in this profession. Maybe we might even see more people choose this as their career. Before I move on, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind you all about renewal. As you know, we have transitioned to a new registration software platform, and while we believe that this is a much more effective system, this will be new to all of us. So please give yourself enough time to renew this year. The late fees are still in effect, and it is our preference not to charge for this. However, there is a significant amount of work required on our end to manage late renewals. And there is a risk to you as a practitioner if you practice with a suspended permit. So again, renewals will open on August 1st, which will allow you 2 months to renew. So give yourself lots of time this year. And as Wendy mentioned, we are here to help. We understand these changes may cause confusion, so if you have questions, please call or email us, and we will provide direction wherever possible. Moving on to continuing competence. We are happy to see how many of you have already started to enter your activities in the new member portal. I know it is a challenge navigating a new system, so we will continue to assist you with any issues you might encounter. Each year, every regulated health professional in Alberta must participate in their college's continuing competence program, and we are no exception. For those new to the program, or for those who can benefit from a quick reminder, the college requires that you achieve 60 credits per year to be eligible to renew. A minimum of 30 credits must be from the approved continuing education list of activities, where you earn 3 credits for every hour of training. The large list of approved continuing education training opportunities can be found on our website and in the member portal. We update this as more and more courses, seminars, and conferences get approved. Any remaining credits can be gained through self-directed learning at 1 credit per hour of training. Self-directed activities do not need to meet the college's continuing education requirements and are generally of personal interest to each member's practice. At times, the college may require all members to complete mandatory training. 2 years ago, members were required to complete a free module on protecting patients from sexual abuse and misconduct. The current cycle did not have a mandatory training module, and there will be no mandatory training modules required for the upcoming cycle either. I would also like to speak about the audit process, as this is relatively new to our members. The audit process was suspended last year as the COVID pandemic presented us with a number of logistical challenges, but auditing records is a requirement of our approved program. This year, the audit was reinstated, and we are currently in the process of reviewing members' activities. The process randomly selects a percentage of members who are then required to provide supporting documentation for the activities they claimed in the cycle that is being audited. The Competence Committee reviews every piece of documentation submitted for completeness, accuracy, and if it supports the activities claimed for credits. This review also allows the committee an opportunity to consider adding additional activities to the continuing education list. The Competence Committee identifies if each member selected for the audit meets the requirements. Members who meet the requirements of the audit will be notified, and those who are deemed not to meet the requirements will also be contacted to develop a plan to make up for the identified deficiencies. This year, we had 4 members who chose not to participate. Those who choose not to submit documentation to the college when requested will be managed through the conduct department. As a reminder, this is a regulatory requirement, and the college must demonstrate to the government that our members are meeting this requirement. While we would rather not use the conduct department to manage those who choose not to comply, we are left with few choices if we want to prove to the government and other health professionals that paramedics are continually striving to improve their practice. To those of you who were selected for the audit and participated, I want to thank you for helping us with this process. Every year moving forward, we hope to improve this process and make it more efficient and less impactful on the members. And each of you who participated helped to do this. I mentioned last year that our Education and Standards Department had been working on expanding the skills for PCPs. We have worked closely with the educators to develop new curriculum content, which will include the skills you see here on this slide. Starting this September, students who enter a PCP program at one of our approved educational institutions will graduate with these skills and endorsements. These PCPs will graduate with less restrictive conditions on their permit and perform more of the skills that were granted to them under the paramedic professions regulation. It also brings us in line with what other jurisdictions are allowing PCPs to do. For those PCPs who are already in the field, we have some of our educational stakeholders developing programs that will allow for you to be trained to perform these skills. As these programs become available, we will be posting the information on our website and in the Pulse, so please continue to check with us. Moving on to conduct. You might recall that last year the college revised and approved the new standards of practice. The year previous, we revised and approved the Code of Ethics. As a reminder, the Code of Ethics sets out the basic ethical commitments that guides all regulated members in Alberta, and the standards of practice provide direction to follow in the course of a member's interaction with and provision of care to the patients and to the public. These documents are the benchmark to which practitioners are held, and this is monitored and enforced by the college's conduct department. As regulated members of a health profession, you are personally responsible for adhering to the standards of practice and the Code of Ethics. In 2021, the college received a total of 75 complaints. In the first 4 months of 2022, the college has received 18 complaints, which puts us on track for 56. In both 2021 and 2022, the complaints related to behavior made up about 75%, while practice errors makes up the other 25. There are also some other interesting takeaways from this information. First, we can see that the largest source for complaints we receive is from the employers. Employers are obligated to report conduct issues to the college, which result in discipline, so we can expect this to be the highest source of complaints. We work closely with our employers to ensure that our investigative processes are thorough and aligned. Another interesting note here is that the number of complaints to the college by the public seems to be decreasing, from 21% in 21 to about 6% in 22. Now, with only 4 months of data, this simply could be an anomaly, but it is a data point which we always keep a close eye on. There is one other area that I'd like to draw everyone's attention to, which is the number of complaints that come to us from one member to another. Our standards of practice and Code of Ethics require members to report other members when they perceive a violation. We have had some of our most significant and important conduct cases come to us from our members, and we thank you all for your diligence in this. The college exists to ensure the safe provision of care to patients and the public. If you believe that a patient's health and safety has somehow been compromised by the provision of care of someone you're working with, we continue to encourage you to report this. That being said, we are seeing a steady increase in complaints filed where members are attempting to use the college to navigate personal conflicts. Conduct cases reported to the college are not taken lightly. If you and your partner don't get along, or if there's a disagreement amongst coworkers, this does not reach the level of unprofessional conduct that the college is required to investigate. We have received many complaints of this nature, where the members seem to expect the college to punish their partner in an attempt to get back at them. If your college does not if your concern does not involve a patient and was not witnessed by a member of the public, it should be addressed with the coworker and the employer. Internal employment matters are different than the issues that we need to address in the regulatory context, which is public safety and the public interest. This should be concerning to all members. Every complaint that comes in must be reviewed following strict rules laid out in the HPA. These processes take time and cost money, and often we must consult with a regulatory law firm to assist us in how to proceed with these type of complaints. And while we do budget for these type of expenditures, we need to keep these costs under control, or additional funding to manage our conduct complaints will need to be evaluated. Lastly, I would like to take a few moments to speak of some national initiatives that are underway. As Wendy mentioned earlier, recent changes to legislation required our college to step back from association activities, and as such, we are no longer a board member for the Paramedic Association of Canada. While we no longer sit on this board, we do remain in contact, and we are aware that PAC has taken on a project to update the 2011 NOCPs. This document has served as the basis for curriculum planning for the last decade, and we are excited to see how this will develop. Now, while we're required to step back from one national organization, we have become more involved with the Canadian Organization of Paramedic Regulators, or COPPR. COPPR is comprised of 9 provincial regulators, and their goal is to harmonize practice while aligning with provincial and federal regulations. COPPR offers the National Entry to Practice exam for EMRs, PCPs, and ACPs, and the college was proud to approve COPPR's Entry to Practice exam as our approved registration exam back in 2020. Currently, 7 provinces use the COPPR exam for the registration requirements. There's also an initiative from COPPR underway to work on essential regulatory requirements, which, when complete, will help provincial paramedic regulators become more harmonized in how they oversee the profession in each jurisdiction. Both of these initiatives are exciting, and the project managers for these meet often to ensure the end products will be complementary. There already has been opportunity for our members to participate in some committees, and there will likely be more opportunities to provide input into these documents. We will be sure to keep members informed of these opportunities as they arise. I'd like to close by saying I believe we've come a long way, perhaps without even realizing it. You heard Melissa speak about some of the major accomplishments that have been made on council for college and the profession over the past 6 years. I also echo Wendy in saying that the college's mandate is to work in the best interest of the public, but that does not mean that we don't support your best interest. The two are not necessarily mutually exclusive, and the college is here to support members whenever and wherever we can. I firmly believe that some of these new developments and initiatives will take our profession to exciting new places, and it feels like we are on the cusp of some very positive progress for our profession. At times, it may not feel like progress is being made, and the day-to-day stressors can only exacerbate that feeling. I can assure you that there is significant work being done behind the scenes, and your voice is being taken into account. I am proud to see the progress and growth this profession has made, and I look forward to seeing where the road takes us. I know questions have been coming in as we've all been providing our updates, so we'll now take a moment to give you a chance to review the pigeonhole questions. We'll answer those with the highest votes first, so please vote for the ones you want answered.
All right, Melissa had to step away for an emergency, so Tim and I are just going to go ahead and answer some of the questions. If there are any questions for Melissa, she will be able to answer them on Pigeonhole, or we will address them in the next pulse. So the first question is, with the new ConEd site, why can't we upload our certificate or proof of attendance when we are submitting our credits like I can with my other designations? With the particular software solution that we're using, there isn't a limited amount of storage available. And if we were to add storage for all 9,000 members, plus people that were on the register previously and are coming after you, it would increase the cost of that program significantly. The other part of it is that really, as the practitioner, you are responsible to keep those records and to be able to produce those records when an audit comes into play. So even if we were to offer the storage, at the end of the day, if you do get audited, we're still going to ask you for those records anyway. So it's just safer to keep them somewhere in your own possession instead of just parking them on a software solution that would ultimately just end up costing us a lot more money.
All right. Next question is, why isn't BLS on the approved continuing education list? And I'll just go ahead and say that's a good question. I'll have to check and see why it isn't. I kind of thought it was, but we will check and get back to you. Is the drop in EMRs related to the MFR program? Well, that's a good question, because it certainly is related, I would expect. Part of it is some changes to the OH&S code that recognize the EMR at the same level as MFR. So for a lot of our industrial stakeholders, the option was available to use MFRs in lieu of EMRs in a lot of situations. Part of it is, with the MFR program that AHS has available, it provides an opportunity to deliver some level of medical care to some rural and remote communities, which is good, but that does take away to some degree the need for EMRs. So to Richard's question, yeah, I think the MFR program certainly does have an impact, but I think there are other aspects as too, as I mentioned in my speech, the changes to the ground ambulance regs, and like I say, the OH&S code, which recognizes MFRs at the same level of EMRs, also contribute. I think I'll take the next one. So we have traditionally had more PCPs registered with the college than ACPs and EMRs, which is true. With more ACPs needed running E911 calls, can the college advocate for more use of PCPs in community care? Thanks, Ian. The community care program under Alberta Health Services is sort of an employer-driven program. We don't have a lot of influence there on how the employer runs their program. We do meet with MIH, Mobile Integrated Health, or the community care group often. It's a really good collaborative group, and they are doing some interesting things. But at this point, we're not really in a position to, let's say, advocate for PCPs in community care, as it's not, as we don't really have jurisdiction over the employer to sort of dictate how they run their business. I understand where you're coming from, though, Ian. We have a lot of PCPs out there, and if there's, finding other opportunities for them to work is, as much as we can advocate for it, we try. But that particular area, community care, isn't really something we have the jurisdiction over. All right, next question. Why are AHS EMS modules not part of continuing education? This is one I think we get just about every year, and it's a great question. So one of our rules for approving a ConEd course or program is that it has to be available to all members. So while the AHS EMS modules are really well developed and they have great content and they're very pertinent, it's not available to all 9,000 members. It is just available to AHS EMS employees. So and that, and that is, something we heard loud and clear from our industrial stakeholders, making sure that, there's educational opportunities that are available unilaterally. And so if it was ever to become available to all regulated members, the AHS EMS modules, we certainly could consider it. It is, like I mentioned, a really, really good, they're generally really good modules, and they're very pertinent to our practice. All right. Will the PCP scope be reviewed yearly to continue upgrading or adding more on top of the recent increases? Actually, I think as opposed to being reviewed yearly, I think the better way to answer this is with the two national initiatives I spoke on, the evergreening to the National Occupational Competency Profile and the essential regulatory requirements that COPPR is doing, these two national initiatives are going to look at the scope, the competencies for all 4 different designations. And once that work is done, which should be middle, second quarter of 2023, we will definitely be reviewing what our PCP scope is in Alberta to try and see what we can do to bring it in alignment with the other jurisdictions, other provinces. All right, another one for for me.
Keeping you busy.
Yeah, where do you see the future of Alberta public EMS going in comparison to private EMS? This is going to require me to speculate a little bit, but I know that the Minister of Health is committed to putting more resources and improving the existing public EMS system. To the conversations that I've been involved in, there hasn't been discussions about moving this to a private contracted model. A private model. There are private contractors that contract to the AHS EMS sort of public system. But do I see it going to a private model? I just can only say that the conversations that I've been involved in don't lead me to think that, but it is a sort of a political or politicized topic, and we are in the midst of some flux in Alberta. So it's a bit tricky to say, but I would say probably not at this time. All right. Next question. How is the college supporting expanded education, including hours, for the expanding scope of practice for PCPs? So we have I may have touched on it in my update, we have a educational providers advisory group that we meet with quarterly, and that is a representative from all the education institutions. And we have spent the last year sort of going through what these expanded scope will mean for the educational institutions as far as their hours go. In fact, we did a number of working groups where we broke it down into what components are already covered in curriculum, what components need to be added, broke it down into some hourly requirements, and established that, I'm going to say roughly 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, and the educational stakeholders have gone back to their institutions and have worked to develop or build these extra hour requirements into their program. So with regards to support, we make sure we get all the feedback from them and then help give them a solid plan when they go back to their to the people that they need to report to, their boards and their stakeholders.
All right, I'll take the next one. With a lot of work from home opportunity within the college, does it make sense to sell the new building that we spent so much on and downsize in these times of inflation? Yes, there has been a long period of time, of course, with the pandemic that staff has worked from home, but staff is actually back in the office, and we find it beneficial to have our teams together when it comes to renewal, the new software implementation, collaborating. The other part is that the building that we are in, we didn't actually buy it. We're renting that building, and that rent was set when we moved in 2020. So inflation in this particular case won't have too much of an influence on that particular rent amount. Yeah, you know, selling the building is not really on the table because we don't actually own the building.
All right, I'll take the next one. Why are your conduct team making phone calls off the record trying to get complainants to settle the complaint so there is no paper trail when all other times it is email? That would be a bit news to me. I think what we'll probably do is I can put that to our conduct department to provide you with an answer to that one. All right, next question. As a PCP, where can one get training for the new endorsement projects that I do not currently have? That's a good question. As I mentioned in my update, we're working with our educational stakeholders to have them develop and deliver ongoing or training for these endorsements. So as soon as we have some of this solidified, we can pass that information along. Will there be a designation for community care paramedics as well as flight CCP paramedics? So I'm going to get a technical here and say we won't have a designation for community care paramedics. It's not a recognized designation or title. Our 4 ones that we have protected titles for are advanced care, as you guys all know, EMRs, PCPs, and ACPs, and then critical care is a protected title. But we don't have a designation for critical care paramedic yet. There is, again, I mentioned it, national work being done on a national level to try and establish where the bar is for each designation. And once there's been the bar set for a critical care paramedic, we then could go to the minister once Bill 46 and everything is all settled down, and we could ask for a designation for critical care. Community care, though, isn't a nationally recognized designation. It could be, and I say could, but it could be something we look at as a specialty. And we've had talks about this before. So you would be an advanced care paramedic with a specialty title of community care paramedic or mobile integrated health or whatever we come up with. The regulations do allow for that. We just have to be very clear about what those parameters are and what training is required to achieve that specialty title. I hope that answered your question, Pete. And I'll move on to the next one. If AHS modules could become part of continuing competency, then industrial workers on days off could support local EMS. Why are we not trying to move something forward with this? Industrial workers on days off could support local EMS. I might be missing the point, but I'll try and answer it. So industrial workers, it wouldn't be just the training required with the AHS modules that it would allow you to support. You'd need to be employed with either the public EMS system or work for a contracted provider. And if you did, then the AHS modules would be available to you. So I may not fully understand that. If there's a way to put some clarity around that, we can try and answer that either later on in this or through our
the Pulse, probably.
Through the Pulse, yeah. Will there be an increase or a broader list of approved Con Ed credits? The short answer is yes. We expanded every year. We have quite a robust list now with over 700 now, I believe, options. but every time we hear of more, and there has been a lot developed and created through the last couple of years as the pandemic has forced a lot of delivery online, there's been more and more options available. So yeah, we continue to develop and make it as comprehensive as we can. So yes, like I say, we have a pretty big list already, but we'll keep working on making it better as more options become available.
And I think there is a form on the Alinity website that if you do take a course that is not on the list and you feel should be, then you can send in that form and it'll be reviewed and then will be added accordingly.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, next question. With the EMR numbers dropping, does the college think or feel that this could be because of the acceptance of OFA 3 being allowed to work in industry in Alberta? Yes, I absolutely think this is impactful. There was some changes to the to the OH&S code, I believe in 2018, changing the definitions changing some of the definitions to allow for this to happen. And as such, OFA 3 under the OHS code can come in and work in industry in replacement of EMRs. There was a review done on both the OH&S code and the OH&S Act. I'm going to get my time all mixed up on this, but probably 18 months ago that we put that we pushed hard to be involved in, and we did submit feedback, very directed feedback on the changes to the definition. But again, we have to recognize where our jurisdiction lies. While we were allowed to participate in that review, that doesn't necessarily mean that they take our suggestions or our feedback and make changes. So I believe that's probably one of the biggest impacts on our EMR is the allowing for the OFA 3 to come in and essentially replace. And as much as we can push on being part of reviews and making changes, it sits with the Ministry of Labor, and that's kind of where it's at right now. Any opportunity we can, we raise it as a concern, but it is outside of our jurisdiction. All right. Next question. When is the college going to give EMRs more option on courses for the CE part of renewal? EMRs have a very limited choice of CE courses to take. That is true. There are less options for CE for EMRs than there are for ACPs and PCPs. So as part of our audit and as more submissions come in, we'll continue to add them to the list, and hopefully we can make the EMR CE every bit as robust as the other two categories. All right, next question. How is the college contributing to the EMS Advisory Committee? All right, well, we pushed really hard to be, and I've said it before, to have a chair at the table or a seat at the table for the discussions that affect our profession. And this did bear some fruit, and we did get invited to sit on the provincial committee. The committee has 5 subcommittees or subcommittee working groups, and every organization can send one representative. So I'm the representative for the college on this, and I sit on 3 of the subcommittees. So I try and bring the perspective of the practitioner and of the profession to all the discussions that take place on the subcommittees and bringing them forward into the core committee. All right. Next question. Why doesn't our regulating body, or or us, the college, control our protocols like other provinces, such as Saskatchewan? Wouldn't this make for easier scope changes?
100%.
Amen. Yeah, right now, protocols are under the jurisdiction of the Emergency Health Services Act and the ground ambulance regs. And while the college absolutely agrees with that last statement, it would be easier because the college oversees, the practitioner's scope of practice, but the protocols are overseen by another agency. And really, protocols are just an organized combination of scope. So this is again something that we've brought up to the Minister of Health. We've believe this would streamline and make changes to scope and changes to protocol far easier, far smoother. And so we continue to work with the people at the EHS department, and are in conversations with them right now to how to manage this. And I have to say that it's been really great working with the EHS department, and recognizing where we can find some of these inefficiencies and perhaps streamline them to make this whole process more efficient. So thank you for the question. Coursera courses were part of CE credits last year. Why not this year? To my knowledge, the Coursera courses are all still part of CE credits. They're offered by institutions that fall within our approval guidelines. So if they're not, I will look into that and get back to you, but I believe they are.
Yeah, it might just be the way that you have to search it in that database too. I know there's a couple of tricks for certain courses that you have to type in something. So whoever asked the question, feel free to contact the college, and maybe we'll be able to figure out where to find them. And if they're not there, we'll certainly add them.
Yeah. All right, next question. Will the college look at more help for EMRs instead of just pushing them into the industry? A lot of EMRs wish to work on ground ambulances, but cannot seem to be allowed to. Great question. So I talked about some of the issues with EMRs related to occupational health and safety, but the ground ambulance regs that came out in July of 2020 prohibited EMRs from working on class 1, 2, and 3 ambulances. This was a concern as soon as we saw the regs. We've been in meetings with the Minister of Health on this. The ground ambulance regs fall under the jurisdiction of the EHS department, so we've been in conversation with EHS on this. And I hope that this is something that will be changed shortly.
All right, I'll take the next one. I want to be a council member. How do I do it? That's a great question. And as Melissa just announced in her speech, we are going to be changing the process to become a council member. We will be communicating that over the months to come. So this isn't going to come into play until next year. We usually have had our elections in August. So it'll be a recruitment-based process where there will be a call for candidates at some point in time. You will be able to submit your resume, your letter, and then there will be an interview process, and there will be a selection committee in place that's going to help evaluate all the candidates. And then from there, the recruitment process will kind of get to the point where, depending on how many council members we need, we'll go through that interview process. we still have to develop that. Like, we have the rough outline of that because we actually do a recruitment-based process with our current committees, and we've actually had a lot of interest in those committees, and that was one of the reasons why we felt that this would become really successful for council. So we will communicate that over the months to come. I don't have all the details, but stay tuned. And we are always excited for people that want to put their name forward, that want to help us navigate a lot of challenging but also exciting changes when it comes to the profession.
All right. Next question is, why isn't the NRP Instructor Update 8th edition not on the approved CE list? There's probably quite a few things that aren't on the approved CE list. There's a lot out there. There's a lot that changes, and it's almost impossible for us to be aware of everything. If you feel that there's something that should be on our CE list, there is as Wendy mentioned, there is a submission form on the website that you can submit something for us to review. I'll just say there's quite a few things that probably could be on there, but if we don't know about it, it's hard for us to add it to the list. So please use that form that Wendy mentioned.
Yeah. Just to be respectful of everybody's time, we have one more question, Tim, to answer. And then if there are any questions that we weren't able to answer today, we will answer them either still on Pigeonhole or in the Pulse. So I'll let you take this last one.
All right. We might have to joint do this one. How do I see past continuing competence courses? So right now, you still can see
our old system.
Yeah, our old system you can still see through the IMAS platform, but when you move and log into the Alinity system, you don't have access to your past continuing competence. So, yeah. It's
something that we're working on. We will probably try to answer this a little bit more in detail in the upcoming Pulse to find out if and when those past courses will be updated. I do know that for this particular cycle, if you had entered any credits for this year, you're going to have to redo it again in Alinity. And that's just because the two databases kind of operate on separate platforms. So when you're trying to merge all this data to a new software platform, this was just the one thing that didn't quite talk to each other. So instead of doing it and having errors occur, we're just asking everybody to just re-enter those credits for this particular cycle. So we will address this in the Pulse as well. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for us today. Like I said, if we have any questions that have gone unanswered, we will answer them for you in the next Pulse, which will come out on June 15th. And for members who want to receive a certificate of attendance for today and receive the 6 continuing education credits, please refresh the page and answer the questions that are going to appear, and you will then be emailed a certificate to keep for your continuing competence records. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Stay safe, and please take care of yourselves and each other.